All right. Good morning, everybody. My name is Jay Marsden. You are here joining us at our regularly scheduled Java with Jay, which is essentially about a half-hour long discussion around some topics that have come up in the office that we face with clients from time to time that we feel like would be helpful to kind of put out there because, if somebody has one question, a lot of people probably have the same question. Sometimes they're just a little too shy and don't want to ask. So what we try to do is we try to collect these topics as they come up, keep them handy, keep them available, and then from time to time, bring them up as a topic for Java with Jay. Again, it's about 30 minutes long. We want to be respectful of everybody's time. The idea is it's just a general overview of some things that we've happened. And then if there's something more specific that applies to anybody's particular situation, by all means, call the office, email the office. Let's set some time up. Let's talk about it. And let's figure out, what the next best way to go. I have, as always, I have my trusty coffee mug right there. I hope you guys are doing the same back home, and we'll get going. So today's topic is about how to keep your money, if you will, and then at the same time apply and or be eligible for Medicaid. Now, it sounds a little bit weird because a lot of people, when they talk about the Medicaid program, when they talk about eligibility for Medicaid, they recognize that it's a means-tested program. So they say to us, Jay, how do those two worlds work? Is there some secret we don't know about? What are we missing? How's it come together? So let me kind of explain what we see from time to time. In a lot of cases, we'll have clients who come to us either for a spouse, a loved one, a parent, aunt, uncle, and they're going through the process of figuring out how they're going to pay for the cost of a nursing home. And everybody, for the most part, is pretty familiar with the idea that nursing home costs are pretty high. They run on average somewhere between, let's say, $12,000 and $15,000 a month. And as you might imagine, that gets pretty expensive pretty fast, no matter what your net worth is. That's a pretty hefty bill that somebody might be dealing with over the course of a 6 month, 1 year, 2 year. I think the average stay in a nursing home is about 2.5 years. So it can be a sizable chunk of change. And in many cases, there are some things that people do. We spend a lot of time talking about pre-planning if you're worried about nursing home care, and pre-planning if you're worried about how those services might be provided. If you want to look towards Medicaid and you want to kind of rearrange or restructure your assets. And there's a lot of talk about the 5-year look back. Used to be 3 years, now it's 5. And there's always talk about it going longer, but there's always a conversation around, can I get this planning done, and can I get it done in such a way that I'll get in front of the 5 years, that I'll make the 5 years. But in a lot of cases, people neglect the planning for any number of reasons. Doesn't matter, not right, not wrong. But in a lot of cases, people just don't do the planning, or there's some scenario or some situation that kind of sneaks up on people. And that's the very proverbial, I thought I had more time. So in many cases, clients will come to us and they'll say, Jay, we think we need to apply for Medicaid. We've got this nursing home situation that we're trying to figure out, and we just don't know what to do. We don't know what our options are. And we're being told by the nursing home, for example, that we have too much money. And so let me kind of lay the groundwork for you as to what too much money means. If you're a single individual, it's very easy. If you want to apply for Medicaid and be qualified for Medicaid, you can't have more than $2,000 in your name. Very easy, very straightforward. If you're a couple, so if you're one half of a couple, Medicaid looks at you a little bit differently. Medicaid says the person going in the nursing home can't have more than $2,000. The spouse who's not in the nursing home, spouse in the house rule, the well spouse, the spouse in the community, those are the words that you hear. The spouse who's not in the nursing home is allowed to have a house and roughly about $130,000, $135,000 in liquid assets. That can be CDs, that can be IRAs, that can be money at Fidelity, a combination of those things. But the spouse in the house cannot have more than about $135,000. I'm picking that as a round number just so everybody understands it. So again, somebody in a nursing home, no more than $2,000. Somebody who's part of a spousal entity, which is how Medicaid looks at you, the spouse who stays home, they can have a house, they can have about $135,000, and they can have whatever income they have and the spouse who's in the nursing home, no more than $2,000. So what we see a lot is spouses, single individuals come to us and they say, Jay, all we have for, I'll take a single individual situation. All we have is a house. My mother never sold the house. After my dad passed, she stayed, vice versa. Or after my mom passed, my dad stayed. He never wanted to do any planning. And now he needs a nursing home. And we have this house, and it's too much money because according to Medicaid, he can't have more than $2,000. So that's the too much money situation. Medicaid says you're a single individual, you have a house, it might as well be $400,000 in cash. It doesn't matter. And so they're going to have a problem with you trying to kind of hang on to the house. The house is arguably up for grabs in a nursing home situation for a single individual. In a spousal situation, the house isn't up for grabs because you get the spouse in the house rule, but they probably have more money than that $135,000. They have extra retirement money. They have extra savings. They've been successful. They've done all the right things, but they might have more than that allowed $135,000. So they'll say, what do we do with our extra money? How do we keep it? Can we keep it? What do we do if we need to worry about going down the nursing home path? So the way we tackle this situation is there's a couple of things you can do. One thing you can do is you can spend it on yourself before this even becomes an issue, right? Spend your money, spend your money, spend your money. And then if you ever are faced with this situation, you've spent your money for all the right reasons, and the nursing home isn't an issue because you don't have any money. The other option is you do some of this pre-planning that we've talked about to try to get in front of this 5-year look back. But the third option is if you haven't done anything, there is what we use as a last minute technique for people who have extra money that allow them to keep that money and use it to support themselves and improve their quality of life while they're in a nursing home. And it's called a pooled trust. And what it means is, and what it allows you to do is, you can essentially take the overage, okay, and place this money into a pooled trust. And that transfer, that transaction is not subject to the 5-year look back. So for example, somebody has a house, that's all they have, they need nursing services. The first conventional thought is, well, we have to sell the house. Let's spend the $12,000 a month until we spend all the money down. Then we can apply then we'd be qualified for Medicaid. Our planning strategy would be, well, let's sell the house. Then let's take that money, the extra money that somebody has, let's place that money into a pooled trust. Once that transaction happens, the individual that we're planning for is immediately eligible for Medicaid. And they get the use of that money. They had a $400,000 house. Now they have $400,000 in a pooled trust. They get the use of that money while they're in the nursing home. So you're in a nursing home and Medicaid lets you keep a whopping $72.80, right? Big deal. It's enough to cover the cost of a haircut and a couple of Boston Heralds. But by putting this money in this pooled trust, you now have access to this money to pay for things that Medicaid won't cover. You can pay for things like your cell phone bill. You can pay for things like your cable TV bill at the nursing home. You can pay for things like a private room so you don't necessarily have a roommate, which you may not want. You can pay for things like if you had to leave the nursing home because you got sick and you needed to go to the hospital to get medical care, Medicaid they'll let you hang on to that bed at the nursing home only for a couple of days. And after that, if you want to come back to that bed in that nursing home where you know the staff and you've grown accustomed to the people and they know you and it's become your de facto home, after 3 days, you have to start paying to hold the bed. If you've got this pool of money from the sale of a house, you can use this money to hold on to that bed, come back to the community that you've now considered your de facto home, come back to the aides, come back to the people that you know. It's kind of the best of both worlds, right? You're not thrilled about being in a nursing home, but the only thing worse than being there is being there with a whopping $72.80 to spend on stuff clothes, things that you're going to need. That stuff has to come from somewhere. What this pooled trust plan does is allow you to keep the money. So in this case, we're talking about, again, about a single individual. Keep the money, use the money to support yourself in a nursing home and pay for things that Medicaid wouldn't cover. Okay. And then what happens? Well, when the person who's in the nursing home, unfortunately, when they pass on and you have a pooled trust, Medicaid, which they always do, they keep track of how much money they spent on your care. So when somebody passes away, Medicaid will say, let's figure out how much money we spent on this person's care. And then that amount of money, whatever it is, will get paid back to Medicaid from the money that's in the pooled trust. So if you had a $400,000 pooled trust from the sale of a piece of property, and you used $100,000 of it, let's say, pick a round number, $300,000 is left. If Medicaid paid $100,000 for your care, your pooled trust with $300,000 will pay Medicaid $100,000. Now you're square with Medicaid. And then whoever you name as a beneficiary of your pooled trust would get the money that remains. Okay. So again, it's an opportunity to take money that the initial thought is, well, I just need to spend this money at the nursing home until it's all gone. And then I can turn around and apply for Medicaid. And then I'm left with my $72.80. What we're suggesting is a better strategy. Take the money, take the extra money that you have, and it doesn't have to be $400,000. It can be $40,000. It can be $80,000. It can be $20,000. It can be some dollar amount that would normally otherwise keep you over the minimum for Medicaid. And then that way, and then in that sense, again, the encouragement is, well, just pay it all to the nursing home. And then when it's gone, then you should do what you need to do. In this case, we're saying there's a way to keep it. The pooled trust plan is the way to keep it. Put it in the pooled trust, use it to support yourself and support these supplemental issues in the nursing home. And then when that's all over and you go to your great reward, then we can square up with the Medicaid folks. Now, question we get quite a bit is, well, what if I owe Medicaid more money than is in my pooled trust? So if you only put $30,000 or $40,000 in a pooled trust and you owe Medicaid $70,000, what happens? Well, the answer is Medicaid recovers whatever they can recover from the pooled trust. And if you owe them more than is available in the pooled trust, nothing happens. Okay. They take what they take. The rest essentially kind of goes away. Nobody's on the hook for it. Your loved ones aren't on the hook for it. If it doesn't exist and it's not available in the pooled trust, it just doesn't happen. It's just not available. Okay. So that's a single individual's plan. I have too much money. I put the money in the pooled trust. I'm going to leave the money in the pooled trust, use it to support myself and get those supplemental things in the nursing home that I normally would not have the resources to pay for. And then afterwards, Mass Health gets paid, Medicaid gets paid back for what they've paid. And then whatever, if there's anything left over, then that money then goes to whoever your beneficiaries are. And we use it the same way in a spousal situation. What we would do in a spousal situation is look at the situation and say, well, how much do we have that we're over? And then between husbands and wives, there is no 5-year look back. It's an important distinction to make. Husbands and wives can give each other money literally right up until they walk in the door of a nursing home. So in a situation where as a spousal entity, there may be too much money, the answer may be, let's figure out a way to put some of the money into a pooled trust plan for the person who goes into the nursing home. And that may help us get closer to that $135,000 limit that the spouse in the house is allowed to have. So rather than spend the money and get rid of it and have it not be available to pay for things in a nursing home, we may split some of the money and actually make a conscious decision to put some of it in the name of the person who's in the nursing home, and then keep the rest of it in the name of the spouse in the house who doesn't necessarily, need that much money. Hopefully they don't need any care. If they themselves need care, there's potentially an opportunity to split the resources and actually set up two pooled trusts, one for the person in the nursing home, one for the person who might now, because they're no longer living together, they may need their own help. They may need their own care. They may not be of nursing home level where that's an issue, but they still may be considered disabled because they either have some cognitive issues or some physical frailties that they were able to manage when they were together as a couple. But now when you've had to separate somebody because somebody needs more 24/7 nursing care and the other person cannot necessarily make it as easily on their own now, there may be an opportunity to split some of these resources. And this is really a benefit, again, to be able to hang on to money. That the suggestion from other individuals who might be trying to guide you on this and who aren't familiar with strategies like this is their answer is always, well, spend it at the nursing home. And then the problem is once it's gone, you don't have a lot of opportunities because you're only left with whatever the Medicaid folks say you have left, which is, as we talked about earlier, $72.80. So what makes all of this worthwhile is you need to understand what the idea or what the concept is around a Medicaid reimbursement rate. That's what makes this whole plan work. And let me explain it this way. So the Medicaid reimbursement rate is what Medicaid pays to a nursing home. So you and I, if we have somebody in a nursing home and the nursing home says, here's your bill, it's a $12,000 bill. It's a $12,000 bill. It's a $12,000 bill. It's a $12,000 bill. And that's coming from a combination of resources that somebody might have, savings, investments, CDs, things of that nature. And then obviously somebody has income. If they have Social Security, let's say Social Security is $2,000 a month. Every month they get $2,000 from Social Security. And then they got to take $10,000 out of their investments, out of their CDs to fill in that $12,000 bill, and they hand it over to the nursing home. Well, when somebody's on Medicaid, what happens is Medicaid pays the nursing home what's called the Medicaid reimbursement rate, okay? And that's less than what we pay as private individuals paying the nursing home. The Medicaid rate is set by the feds, and the Medicaid rate might be half of what you and I are paying as kind of the street rate, all right? So we're paying 12, the Medicaid reimbursement rate, that might be, let's say 6, all right, just to make up the number. So now Medicaid's paying the nursing home 6. Out of that 6, a loved one with $2,000 in Social Security income is paying their income to the nursing home every month of $2,000. So the delta, the difference is Social Security for 2, Medicaid paid 6. So Medicaid's only looking to me or to my loved one for the extra $4,000. That's the number that goes in the book that says, okay, every month, Jay's paying $2,000 to the nursing home, and then we, Medicaid, are paying 4, not 12, 4. So it's 4, 4, 4, 4. I'm paying 2, 4, 4, 4, 4. So at the end of a year, I may be on the hook, if I'm the one that's in the nursing home, to Medicaid for $48,000. Okay, not $120,000, not $140,000 if we're paying $12,000 a month, $144,000. They're looking for $48,000 at the end of a year from me. So you can see if you had to go through this pooled trust plan, and if you had a piece of property that you sold, or you had a pool of resources, money, securities, CDs, and you said, look, I don't want to spend $120,000 or $140,000 at the nursing home. I'd much rather spend $48,000 at the nursing home, use a pooled trust plan, be able to use the money while you're in the nursing home. And even at the end of 2 years, if something happened to somebody and Medicaid shows up and says, well, we've been paying the bill for 2 years, you owe us roughly $50,000 a year. You owe us $100,000. So if we go back to our original plan, I had a $400,000 pooled trust. I owe Medicaid for 2 years worth of care in a nursing home, $100,000. Here's your $100,000. Happily write that check. And now I've got $300,000 that I can use to create or to leave a legacy to my loved ones. And we're back to this possible best of both worlds. I got the care that I need. I had the resources to improve the quality of my care. And then at the end of my time in the nursing home, I got to square up with Medicaid, and I still was able to leave a sizable legacy to my family. If you didn't do the pooled trust plan, you would have written $150,000, $120,000, $140,000 worth of checks the first year, $120,000, $130,000 worth of checks the second year, other ancillary costs that come up along the way. And you can see the difference between those two plans, right? Somebody leaves a $100,000 legacy, somebody leaves a $300,000 legacy. Which of those two is preferred? You know, there's no math in law school, but I think I know the answer. And so these types of strategies on the single side then get applied to the same type of strategy in a spousal situation, where by having some money available, by having some resources available to cover costs at a nursing home that would normally be chewed up by just writing a bill, private paying to the nursing home, this is a way for us to cut your nursing home bill in half and then still allow you the access to your money or your resources to improve the quality of life and the quality of care for the things that Medicaid wouldn't cover. And the use of your pooled trust is pretty broad. It pretty much needs to be anything related to the individual who established the pooled trust. And so it can pay for a lot of things. It can cover and do a lot of good. But what we have found is a lot of folks don't know about this strategy. And we're always shocked when we hear that, because we've actually utilized it quite a bit. And we've been very, very successful with doing it with a lot of clients on this side. So in keeping with our commitment to time and being respectful for everybody's day that they have coming up, I'm happy to answer any questions that people might have and cover anything in a little bit more detail if that's what people feel they need, and make sure everybody understands that kind of the idea behind the plan.
I'm curious, like who do you go to establish a pooled trust, or do they exist? And you become, I mean, it's pooled, so I'm not sure if it's pooled with other people or it's just
Sure.
an individual.
So the first answer is you come to us. That's the first answer, right? The second answer is you're exactly right. So the pooled trust is not something that we draft. It's not a document. The pooled trusts are what's called creatures of statute, right? As part of the Medicaid regulations, these pooled trust organizations exist. There's a couple of them in Massachusetts. We use one exclusively up on the North Shore that we've had a lot of success with. The idea behind the pooled trust is exactly what you just mentioned. It's designed to take smaller accounts that would be potentially unmanageable or would be not so much unprofitable, but economically not that feasible. And it pools these resources. And then the money from all of the individuals, all of the pooled trust participants, is then managed by the company that handles the pooled trust that actually becomes the trustee. So for example, you're turning over money to a trustee in the pooled trust program. And then as bills and expenses and costs come up, you're just literally handing the bill off to the pooled trust people. And then they pay the bill to whatever the vendor is, whatever the costs were incurred through. So there's a number of them around the state. What makes this work is all of the pooled trusts have to have a charitable component behind the work that they do. So the one that we use, for example, they, again, by statute, are required at the end of somebody's time, right? When somebody passes on and that money gets distributed out to the beneficiaries, the pooled trusts are required to keep a percentage of the amount of money that's in the pooled trust at the end. So for example, in the organization that we use, they keep 5% of the trust if your pooled trust has been set up for a year or less, 10% if it's 2 years or less, 15% if it's 3 years or longer, it's 15%, 10% for 2 years, 5% for 1 year. And then that money they use, their charitable purpose, if you will, is that they try to provide funding for people who are indigent and need guardianship services and just don't have the ability to pay for lawyers to do that. So that's their give back. That's their charitable wheelhouse for what makes this work. So they do keep some money behind, but the money that they keep behind, we think, pales in comparison in as far as the amount of money that is saved and the benefits that people receive or that they reap by having access to the resources. But there's a number of them. And then again, we don't draft it. It's a pretty straightforward process. And then they communicate with you. Once the pooled trust is open, they send you a welcome packet. They tell you who your contacts are at the pooled trust. They show you how to request money to have the money paid out of the pooled trust. And then they assign you, essentially sort of a trust officer, if you will, that would work with you to help you out with these issues. The thing to keep in mind is, in many cases, the pooled trust folks will not let you spend the money all the way down to zero, because there may be some unforeseen things. That bed hold situation I mentioned earlier is something that they see a fair amount of. And, in the interest of keeping people in some continuity in terms of where they are and who they're surrounded by and what their community looks like, they usually do not let somebody spend it all the way down to zero. You really are deferring to them in terms of how they think that the pooled trust for the recipient should be managed, and they'll try to keep $10,000 or $11,000 behind for unforeseen circumstances and to cover your fees. So you want to have a conversation with whoever you're working with so that you understand the intricacies and the ins and outs. There's not a lot of moving parts, but there's a couple. It's a different concept.
Thank you.
Sure. Anybody else?
Jay, it's Jeff. Is pool trust the only option? Obviously, I understand it's kind of narrow the way Medicare has it set up and stuff like that, but that's pretty much the only other alternative side of just not giving the money or having the money at all to begin with, right?
Yeah, the other alternative is, and we could potentially do another job with Jay in this, but the other alternative is to take that money. And again, Medicaid makes a distinction between money and they make a distinction between income. And so in many cases, the other alternative or sometimes companion plan to these pooled trust plans is to have some of your money converted into an annuity. It's not an annuity for investment purposes. People ask us all the time, what's the rate of return? What's this? What's that? There's none of that. This is literally taking, I'm going to make up the number, taking $100,000 of money, giving it to an insurance company and saying, give this back to me over the course of 60 months, for example. Give me a 5-year income stream. And depending on the situation, sometimes the annuity would work in conjunction with usually the spousal Medicaid plan. It doesn't work very well on the single individual side because any income that the person gets literally just turns around and gets paid to the nursing home anyway. But in a spousal situation, we may do a combination of a pooled trust for the person who's in the nursing home so that they have access to resources to improve their quality of life. And then if there's more money left on top of that, we may use some of that money into an annuity for the spouse who's in the house, because Medicaid doesn't care about the spouse in the house's income. They just don't care about it. It doesn't factor into the equation. So we may do a combination of the two, but those are probably the two, with the exception of something like somebody living in the house for 2 years and taking care of somebody, or some disabled children planning. Those are the two last minute techniques if you haven't done any sort of pre-planning to get some of this stuff out of your way. And they usually, again, they work a little hand in glove when it comes to the spousal situation.
Thank you.
Yep. Anybody else? All right, seeing nobody, I will I'll let everybody go to enjoy what is looking like to be a beautiful Thursday. I hope everybody has a wonderful holiday weekend, and stay tuned to your inboxes for more information on up and coming Java with Jay sessions.
Thanks,
Everybody
Jay.
have a
Appreciate it.
great day and a great weekend.
You too, buddy. Thanks.
Thanks so much.
All righty.